Welcome to The Cloaked. We are a collective of inquiring minds seeking answers to mysteries both past and present. Join us on our journey to discover that which remains hidden. And now, on with the show.
All right, everyone. This is The Cloaked. My name is White Owl.
And this is Pandora.
All right, and welcome to another episode of The Cloaked. Today we'll be discussing the missing 411 and David Paulides and his road to discovery of his amazing books and the stories of the missing people that he has researched, and he has logged thousands and thousands of hours, and this is taking him years of going over information and looking into some of this missing people. And so for some of y'all who may not know, David Paulides is a former detective, also is a cryptozoologist. And so he definitely has a bit of experience on several aspects of wildlife, some of the unknown wildlife that may be out there. And yes, I'm referring to possibly like Bigfoot, also creatures that, or I should say animals that may have existed at some point. So it with that, it definitely does range a variety of different things. And so the last of we would know back in 2012, in an interview, he previously stated that he's logged in over 7,000 hours of research in a 3-year period. So I mean, now we're in 2017, so he's clearly at least doubled that amount. And he has 4 books, very interesting books. He also has a YouTube channel with a lot of information concerning these missing people and these reports. And he's taken his time to look into the different cases and research. Now, the reason he's researched so many hours is because he's not given the information as to what the cases have, documentation, autopsy report, the findings. You know, a lot of this information is not really public, and so he has to do a lot of legwork and looking at some of that information. And so with that, he definitely is a very dedicated man, looking for the information that he needs. And so I'm going to read a little bit of this interview he did. Again, David Paulides, he did an interview for the Mercury News, and I'll definitely be posting this article for y'all to read. So I'm not going to go through the full information as to the article. I definitely want you guys to read up on the information and get to know David Paulides. So let's start here at the beginning. He's a former detective. He, did a bit of a look into this national park in Yosemite, and he was trying to research on some missing reports. And so he is later approached by 2 park rangers who are off duty, and he gets some bit of information, and he's told, hey, look, you're looking into the park, and you're looking into some missing reports for some missing people, and so we want you to take a look at this case. And his case that definitely led him into the missing 401 that he's well known for is the Stacy Aras of Saratoga, who goes missing at the Yosemite National Park back in July 17th, 1981. And it's a very interesting case, and we're definitely going to go over it right now. And it's, well, you'll get to, come with your own conclusions and your own theory of what happened to this missing person, Stacey Harris, who was 14 years old at the time. And so she is on vacation with her dad, horseback riding with some campers. And so they're going on a horseback ride, and they stop at a resting point. And she definitely, from what we understand, she definitely goes through a change of clothing article. And she goes up to her father and says, "Hey, look, I'm gonna take some pictures. Do you want to go down to the lake with me?" And her father declines. And so on her way down, a 71-year-old man goes with her. Now everybody's a witness, seeing her go down to the lake. And as she heads down there, the older gentleman that she's with says, "I'm tired. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna rest here for a bit." And she continues on, definitely, to the lake. And so as she heads down to the lake, she heads towards the tree line, and that's where she is last seen. She's last seen around this tree line, and nobody really knows where she went or what happened. And so this 71-year-old man goes back to the other members of this trip and says, "Hey, she hasn't come back. I think we should go look for her." And so they do. They essentially go looking for her, and they're not able to find her at all. Again, nothing is found except for a lens cap from her camera. So it's very odd. They're not able to find any footprints. They're not able to find any articles of clothing, blood, struggle of any sort. And so it's the whole case is very odd to what happened to her. Nobody knows exactly what happened. They don't know if she was taken, she was abducted, maybe she got injured, or maybe she wandered off and she got lost. And so her body is not found. Her body's never found. And so this case is it's definitely what got David Paulides into the missing 401. So he did a little bit more research, and as he's doing this research, he's able to find more and more cases of missing people around Yosemite National Park. And so, definitely looks into all these cases and follows up with family members, follows up with people who were there looking for this missing people. And so he's able to gather a lot of information. And so as he gathers a lot of information, he's able to write his books. And so in these books contain stories upon stories of these missing people. And each story is very interesting. And, you realize that each story, it's definitely an individual. An individual has lost a family member, a father, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle, a mother. Definitely that is something to look into. If you have the time, I suggest you go to Amazon or go to David Paulides' website, which is the canamissing.com, and you could purchase one of his books. And so within his books, he never really discusses what he believes what happened out of respect of the family. And so, with him gathering us all this information, you wonder, well, why is he not able to get the reports from the park rangers? Why is he not able to get some of this information from them? And so, as you get to, know David Paulides, and you get to know his story, and you get to know his findings and how he researched and why he has to research so much to get the information he's able to get, you find out that you have to pay to get this information, and the amounts of of each case of what one cost is just astronomical. Just to gain access to their system, to their list of system, is over $1.4 million. Just to gain access to that, and to get a list just on Yosemite Park costs over $34,000, and that's a lot. And I mean, how many investigators, how many researchers have that kind of money to look and research and try to find out what happened to these people? So it's just overwhelming how much someone has to pay to get this information from the national parks. It's just weird. It's crazy. And so reading all this information and looking into all of this is just, to me, is just bizarre, to say the least. And so one of the cases he also talks about and looks into, he looks into a case called, well, I shouldn't say a case called, it's a person, Jeff Christensen, who was a missing park ranger. And so, he goes into the research of this park ranger, and just to get the information costs over $7,000. And this is what they tell him. And as he's trying to get this information, he says, "Oh, how much? I mean, why does it cost so much? I mean, why can I get an author's exemption?" He goes and asks for that, because there is a way you can get an author exemption where, because you're an author, you're able to access some information. And so he asks, and they're not able to give him anything. They tell him, and he says this on his talks. He says, they tell him he's not in enough libraries. He's not in enough libraries. So he says, well, how many libraries do I need to be in order to get some of this research? And that's just, to me, that's crazy. And so, and it's just the way they respond is I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Pandora? What do you think of the way he's trying to get all this information, and how he's going about and researching and these cases? What's your opinion on all this?
To me, it just seems like every time you go and ask for information, it seems like they have some really huge obstacle for you to overcome. And so I just wonder if he actually did come up with the money and say, okay, here's, this amount, $7,000 or whatever it is, the price that they're asking. Or if he, is like, okay, I'm in X amount of libraries now, where's the information? If they won't come up with some other thing that he has to now provide or overcome. Because it just seems like they want to hide it. As to why they want to hide it, I don't know. But there's obviously something that they don't want the public to be aware of. Yeah,
definitely. It definitely seems like they're hiding something. Not quite sure what exactly they're hiding, but they're hiding something. Or at least it seems like they are. And I mean, you read some of these cases. They get a little strange and they get a little weird. And as we go and we'll read some of these other cases, and we'll briefly go over them. We won't specifically go over the full story. We'll kind of give you the short notes of it. We definitely want you to go and read these stories and purchase his books, because they're very interesting. Definitely check out his YouTube channel. It's quite the listen, and it's just amazing. But I mean, you read some of these stories. What do you think overall is going on? Do you think are there multiple theories, or what are your thoughts on all that?
I mean, there's a lot of theories that you could go with. I mean, obviously, because they're out in the woods or somewhere, the first thing they're gonna say it's probably an accident, or there's wildlife that could have gotten to them. But there's a lot of circumstances that just don't add up. People being found, without their shoes on or without certain articles of clothing, or being found in a completely different area from where they were even walking through. it just doesn't quite add up. And the fact that they're so secretive about it just leads you to believe that there's possibly something more going on.
Right.
So I guess one of the ones that is kind of an early on one was the Trenny Lynn Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
She disappeared October 8th, 1976 from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park of Tennessee. And she's only 16 at the time. It was a really weird disappearance. She's actually on a field trip with about 40 of her classmates, and they're hiking. She's hiking with them, with the whole group. And she just kind of disappears right in the middle of everything. And, they searched for her for quite some time. They didn't find anything that led to any information about her. The only thing that they actually found was...
Which this is the odd part. Classmates say that she bends over to either get something or she's looking at something near a rock. They don't say how big this rock is, or it's a boulder or what. But she's definitely looking into something that's on the ground, and she bends over to get it. And as the her classmates are walking towards her, so I don't know exactly if she's outside a hill or off a curve. The classmates lose sight of her for a second, and then she disappears. And that's kind of odd that she just disappears like that. But
this is like during the daytime too. This is like 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
Right.
So like it's not even a visibility issue at this
right.
point.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like she's in the dark and she's not being fully seen. And what I find it strange is, it's very intriguing, is that she's picking up something that's on the ground, and she's looking at something. Something catches her eye, and she looks at something. She's trying to reach for it, and then her classmates see her doing this, and then they don't see her at all, and then boom, she disappeared. She's gone. And so, as I'm reading a lot of these cases, I see a lot of resemblance on several other cases that I've read, and some of the other stories that people have given out, and some of the stories that David Paulides collects in his book. And the very interesting stuff. There's one case of this older lady in her 50s who is on a trail, and she, looks to get something that's off the trail. She steps off the trail, and she disappears. People saw her, looks like she was getting something, and she goes off trail, and then boom, she is gone. She is nowhere to be seen. And there's a lot of stories like that, where there are stories where children were seen. It looks like they're talking to somebody, or they're going off with someone, but that's not there, and they're all of a sudden they're gone. There's one case where a family comes to this cabin, and the brother sees the little brother jump on a swing. And so they come into the cabin, and they step out really quick, and he goes to call his brother, and his brother was on the swing, and he turns around to call his brother, and his brother then is missing. He's missing from the swing. The swing is still swinging as if he was still on it, but he's not. He's not there. Where'd he go? Where did his little brother go? And you read all these stories, and there's one where I thought it was very interesting. This little girl, she went missing, and then she is found. She returns back. But what this little girl claimed is that she went off wandering, and she meets these little people, as she claims. And she best describes them as dolls. And there were these glowing dolls, like silver, kind of glittery glow. And they take her back to her cabin, back to her house. And it's like, okay, someone could say it's just the imagination of a child. But sometimes, children tend to say things honestly as they can. They tell you the truth sometimes, it's just they blur it out. well, what if this child this is exactly what she saw? I mean, you read some of these stories. What do you think?
So you're saying it's something that's possibly living in the woods or living in these parks. Possible, that's not
definitely. I mean, we don't know what's out there in the woods. I mean, definitely there's a lot of research and there's a lot of stories. I mean, I've read a couple of stories from two of them that stuck out to me, both based out of Sweden. And this obviously is not in the U.S. But this story is actually quite interesting because it also takes place in the woods. And so what happens is this story is of someone's grandmother when they were a child. They claim to have gotten lost in the woods and couldn't find their way back to the farm. And so essentially this person went to go find a cow and then just gets lost. And so on their way back, they don't know where they're going. They just all of a sudden they're lost in the woods. And they meet up. They meet some tall woman that I guess the best way they can describe it is model like, and someone that's gliding over the ground, not touching it. She appears to be not touching the ground, and she
like
is
a ghost?
I guess, and she's just gliding, not touching the ground, and just floating about, and takes the child back to the farm with the lost cow. The little girl does not remember where the cow came from. She doesn't recall at what point during their walk back did the cow come with them, which is like, whoa. Like, how do you miss a cow? You know what I mean? But it's just like, wow.
Random floating lady brings the kid back and a cow?
I don't know. But she says that, as she turns around to say goodbye to the lady to thank her, she turns around. She's no longer there. She has gone back into the woods, and then she remembers seeing, and this is where we get into the paranormal kind of thing and the out of this world. She sees a spaceship, as she describes it, as some kind of vehicle with big windows, and she sees this person that helped her along with these other little people. And so you think about this story, and if, let's say, you take this as fact, you take this story, and this is not like something that's a fairy tale. You take it as what this kid saw, and you think the first thing that pops into your mind is she saw a Nordic alien boarding a ship and taking off into space.
Why? I mean, why bring this kid back though? Like, this is a benevolent being. Like, a lot of these other people go missing. Like, why did this one say, "Oh, here you go"?
Mean, there's a lot of cases where these kids get returned back to their home safely, and these kids have these stories of like little people, and these some could say they're gnomes, dwarves, trolls, and in Spanish, duendes. I mean, there's definitely these stories of these mythological creatures that live in the forest, and there's theories that these mythological creatures, they could be aliens disguising themselves as these mythological creatures, not to scare the children. They do that for the children, so the children won't be scared. And so there's that theory.
Plus, the kid can come back and say literally anything, and people are not going to believe them.
Exactly. People are definitely not going to believe them. Are you going to believe a child, says, "Hey, I saw somebody, that's about my height, but looked like an older man," and
you're going to be, "Oh, you have an overactive imagination."
Yes, they're going to just say, "Oh, it's an overactive imagination." You have a little friend, that no one can see. It's one of those things.
They're not bringing back the adults, though. So
yes,
the adults don't seem to be making it back.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look into the cases of these adults being found miles away from where they were on the trail, supposedly going off trail, and they're found, beyond a hill, beyond a mountain cliff, and
a lot of times places that they were already searched for.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely.
Days later.
They're stated that they've searched. You know, there's definitely on this park ranger that David Pelias talks about. They apparently, you know, had searched this area, you know, more than 20 times, and you know that they never saw this body, and then all of a sudden somebody is out there camping, or you know, is going about their business and discovers this body where they had researched before. So like, what's going on? How did, you know, they miss this body? Like, how does one miss a body, you know, in a place that they've looked and looked and looked repeatedly over more than a dozen times, and then someone just finds this body there? So how does that happen? That's weird, right? I mean, it is. Yeah,
you're talking about Jeff Christensen, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, with his and like, it's not even like weather was the factor, because I'm looking at it here and it says that, you know, it was July, the sky is clear, winds are calm. There wasn't like snow or anything else where you can say, oh, well, it was covered and then it was uncovered. I mean, this is the park ranger we're talking about, so it's somebody who knows the area.
Terrains, exactly.
It's not like some amateur hiker or a child. It's somebody who has experience in the area and
knows the area. Yeah,
knows the area that they're in. Also has a radio. You know, why did he not ever use his radio? Like, he actually had a working radio when they found him too. So.
Here's one of the things that David does mention is that over the radio, they heard a couple of clicking sounds. They weren't sure if it was a technical issue. They also do mention that people had heard gunshots, but there was not. I feel like there wasn't really. There wasn't assurance of what it was exactly, so it's kind of odd to hear that. But again, they find the park ranger with. I think he was bandaged over his head.
Yes.
And so, you know, whenever they did the autopsy, they said, well, he fell and hit his head, and that's what ultimately, you know, killed him. And so it, you know, and they go ahead and they write that to the report, which David's finally able to get. And, you know, it's just bizarre on how, you know, again, they've looked in this area and he's never been there, and then boom, all of a sudden he's there. Like, how does that happen? So, you know, there's definitely a lot of stories that you read that resonate over and over, and you don't know what to think. You know, you definitely don't know what to think. You don't know what to look at. And in his book, David, and several of his books, he goes over the different areas, the different parks. He goes all the way from the United Kingdom, New Zealand. Again, he does definitely speak about Switzerland, Austria, Ecuador. He definitely goes over a lot of areas. And just in the United States, there's about 30, and out of the 50 states, 33 states have big major clusters. And it's definitely something, you know, that should be read. I think you should definitely read some of these stories, and some of these stories are very strange. I mean, there was this one case in the book that he and I read this short story that's in there about this this family, and you know, it's very unfortunate what they went through, but it was a father and son and a friend. They're out, you know, on a trail hiking, and they're with they have a dog with them. And so this is something I read in one of the forums, actually. It's and it's very sad. So the father is out, you know, with the son and with his friend, and they make a stop. And so the father and this friend, they're having a conversation, and, you know, the dog's kind of running around, and his son, who's not a teenager, he's an adult, is off, you know, to the side a couple feet, not maybe 3-4 yards. And so they're having a conversation. He takes a couple steps away, and all of a sudden, the father is talking to the friend, turns around. He doesn't even take 5 seconds. He turns around and his son is gone. Where did he go? Why can't he find him? And it's not like this forest is thick. The tree line is not thick. He's able to see, the different areas of the forest. He can see from a distance where his son should be, and he's not there. And so he looks at the dog, and the dog's very confused. He doesn't know what's going on. He's looking around. I believe I think I've read that the dog whimpered a little bit, but they're not able to see where his son went. And then they go on and they do a search, and there's no signs of struggle. There's no signs of of any kind of adoption. He looks around. You would have heard a struggle of some sort. You would have seen some people taking his son. You would have seen something. Like, there's no way for someone to kind of take somebody without them noticing, especially if they're a couple of feet away. So what happened? And so you read these stories, and they're very bone chilling. I mean, kind of makes you not want to go out into the forest or camp or anything, right?
Never going camping again.
Yeah, exactly. And so, these stories are definitely, they're very well put together. And, he definitely has sub chapters where he does separate from weather conditions, scholars and intellectuals, elevation gain, distance traveled. I mean, he definitely goes into different areas, even the different national parks. And so, and he definitely has, some people have asked this before, the people that I've discussed this book and this YouTube channel that I've found very interesting and tell people about it all the time. He definitely discussed people who go missing from their home, from inside their home, people who go missing from their vehicle. And these are not all like taken there, and they don't happen within the the urban area. They're usually suburban to the outside, the woods, the hiking places, camps, stuff like that. And that's where all these narratives happen. And he starts to map everything, and then there's clusters and all these camps and all these parks, and Yosemite Park is one of the big ones that all this is taking place. And I tell people, hey, be careful when you go to Yosemite,
Watch your back.
Watch your back. Hey, watch your back. I mean, you don't know what's out there. And it's not even from people like either ahead or behind. It's just this thing that happens, and they're not able to find out, what is happening, what's going on. And so there's all these theories, and of course there's some theories about Bigfoot being out there, and they would explain with how some of the people, if you go into the Bigfoot theory and you believe the Bigfoot theory, that with these missing people, that he's carrying off these people, and he's taking them from one place to another, and he's roughing them up, and they find them somewhere else. But I mean, I don't know how you would explain the missing articles of clothing, or how would you would explain sometimes they're not wearing the clothes correctly, or they're not wearing their a jacket they had on, they're not wearing it right, or something like that, which is in the case of Dr. James McGrogan, yeah. And so what did you think of that case? I mean, that was a very interesting case.
Yeah, that one was super bizarre to me. So basically you have a guy he's a doctor, so he's, smart guy. He is in really excellent physical condition. He typically hikes and, goes through these trails all the time. And he's out with his friends. He goes along this trail. He kind of tells them he's going to go up ahead. So, a couple stops ahead, they're supposed to meet up. they get there and he's not there, so they just assume, well, he must have kept going without them. And they literally, you know, that's the last time they see him alive. What was really odd was when they found him, though, he was in a completely different area from where the trail normally goes. In fact, it was an area that would have been extremely difficult to actually hike. About 5 miles roughly, and you know, a lot of going up and down and zigzagging, of course, because when you hike you can't go in a straight line.
Right.
And it just, and also he was found without shoes, so you have to wonder, like,
right, yeah,
why did he take this impossible trail?
Right, yeah.
And you know, especially when he's meeting up his friends in just like a little bit, and then has no shoes. He did have injuries, but you know, it's hard to say exactly how he got them,
right.
At what point. And just, you know, in a completely different area. That's what I thought was strange. It's almost like, you know, he was put there, but
how? Yeah,
because and they interviewed people that, you know that area, and they said nobody would like willingly take that trail.
That trail, exactly, unless they were doing some kind of extreme.
Yeah, unless you're trying to do some
hike.
kind of extreme world record setting experience. Yeah. You wouldn't do that to yourself. It's just not a fun route to take. So yeah, that one really boggled me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this thing where he is found a whole, you know, couple of miles from where the trail he was hiking, and he did tell his friends, you know, hey, I'm going to the next stopping point. I'll meet you there. And he went ahead and you know, he was supposed to meet up his friends in the next stopping point, and his friends actually got to that stopping point and they didn't find him. So that promptly, they went ahead and they kept going to every stop until they reached the end, and he wasn't there. So they definitely went back to see if they can find him. But you know what's also bizarre is that he had a GPS. I mean, he was a prepared person. He had a GPS. He had his phone, which, you know, at this day and age, we always carry our phone. But he was definitely prepared. He had one of those shovels. You know, he had a medical kit as well.
Yeah, it wasn't his first time hiking.
Yeah,
he had all kinds of
experienced hiker.
He was ready for like literally everything.
Yeah, exactly. And also when they found him, I think I heard them say his jacket was in his backpack.
Yeah,
right?
His jacket was, which he had been wearing, I think, was put into his backpack, and then his shoes were missing.
Yeah, it's just like it doesn't make any sense why his shoes would be missing. Like why take off your shoes in this type of terrain? It's just, you know, it doesn't make any sense. So, you know, you kind of want to look into all that and you know, kind of come up with your conclusions, come up with theories. There's so many theories. You know, once you start reading these books and all these cases, you start to wonder what is going on in these parks. And so, you know, he started, you know, writing and picking up and gathering all these stories, because these stories need to be told. You know, nobody knows, you know, what happened to these people. And so he definitely compiled all the information. He gathered a lot of the information, and he's definitely been putting it out there for people to know and you know, get the information of what's happening out there, because a lot of people don't know. They don't know that there's, you know, hundreds of missing people every year at these parks. All these parks, each park, hundreds of people missing. And, you know, that all that adds up. And you look into the stories of the people who were there and people that witnessed, and, you know, it's definitely mind-boggling. And so, you know, he's been putting, you know, all these stories together, and he's coming up with a Missing 411 documentary, which definitely he's putting out there. And if you go to his channel, Can-Am Missing Project, he has a trailer that he just released 3 months ago, and I believe his release date for the movie is on May 12th. He will be releasing the movie, and so I believe he already picked a venue for it. I believe it's somewhere in Colorado.
It's May 13th, according to
his
website.
May 13th?
Yeah, May 13th,
okay. May 13th.
And it is in Denver.
Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
And it's sold out, in case you want to
And it's sold out. Wow. I mean, this is very interesting. I mean, you know, those people that read his books, I mean, even if you don't read his books, if you just go to his YouTube channel and you look at some of these, if you're a visual person, you know, you go and you look into his videos, you know, you definitely get a sense of something's happening and we're not being told. And why are these park rangers keeping a secret? He also goes on and says, you know, these park rangers are told not to tell anyone about any case or about any missing person. So even if you asked about a specific person, a specific case, you're not going to get any information. Even if, you know, even if you're a family member, you are able to get some of the information, but it won't tell you the full information. You know, they won't give you the documentations that they have. And so what's going on? Why are they not able to get this information? You know, to me, it just doesn't make any sense.
Like, where's the outrage? Like, I would feel like there's more people going, we want answers. Like, there's obviously something that they're trying to hide.
Yeah, exactly. There's something they're trying to hide. And I definitely recommend for you to, you know, Google some of Dave Paulides' videos. Definitely look it up on YouTube, and then, you know, buy a book. Buy one book, and you know, read some of these stories, and you know, your outlook on these national parks. It's never gonna be the same. It's just, you know, it's never going to be the same. You're never going to want to go out there and be alone. You know, because I've met some people that have actually read some of his books, and, you know, it's definitely changed their outlook. And some of these guys are people who, you know, that go hunting during hunting season, and they're afraid if they take a family member, a son or a brother, that, you know, they might turn around and they might not be there. And so this is something definitely worth looking into. Again, I recommend a good read, and you know, come up with your own theory, again, your own ideas of what is happening out there. And then again, you know, if you're able to do that, you come up with some ideas, you have some thoughts, theories, you want to share one of the stories you found, definitely hit us up on Facebook or on YouTube. Their Facebook is facebook.com/The Cloaked Podcast. Definitely find us and share some of the information, share your thoughts. And on Twitter, it is The Cloaked _ The Cloaked, at The Cloaked has been taken, so we have at The Cloaked _ And so definitely look us up, send us a tweet. Again, if you like this podcast, please share and like, and we'll see you on the next episode. Good night.